people always say, well, how do you learn jiu-jitsu if you're not practicing or drilling techniques? Because that's how you create muscle memory. And it's like the problem is you're looking at jiu-jitsu the wrong way. You're looking at jiu-jitsu, the progression in jiu-jitsu, as if it's the accumulation of techniques rather than the acquisition of skill and knowledge. That's the first mistake most people make. The second is muscle memory is developed all the time. No matter what you're doing, you're creating muscle memory. And the more you start trying to organize and fabricate and pre-rehearse and pre-shape techniques, the more you're developing unnatural muscle memory that's not realistic and not completely honest. And it's like I could go and get someone, you get two types of people, right? And they've never spoken a word in their life, okay? Could be little babies, right? And one learns by osmosis by constantly talking to them and talking clearly. Like one of the mistakes people make all the time is talking to their kids like, they're sitting there trying to figure out how to communicate, and they're getting so much false information and thinking, oh, maybe that's a word. That's not a word. You're just like confusing the fucking baby. And I get why people do it. Don't get me wrong, like, because I don't understand that. But I've got a friend, and he talks to his little girl, and he talks to her really clearly and very slowly. And she's like 1-year-old speaking so well. And half the time, I don't know what she's speaking because she's speaking Swedish. But I'm like, were they real words? And sometimes they're not, but they're so clear and crystal. And then I know a couple other kids that are like 2 years old, and they're still like, blah, 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 not knowing anything because, everything they're learning, naturally the brain's learning everything because it wants to do two things, procreate and survive. And you're confusing it by giving it all this false information. The same thing happens in jiu-jitsu when you start pre-shaping all this and you start doing all these techniques. You're trying to skip lines by practicing something that's already been proven to be successful, a technique. But then you don't realize like no technique is foolproof. Every single technique will and can be, can and will be counted, and nothing is going to work all the time. So you're already on the wrong step. The second thing is, what you should be doing is learning through experience. It's so much more valuable to learn through experience than what it is through just practicing something. And there's something that scientists recently figured out, that the amygdala plays a huge part in how deep to store information. And the way it dictates whether you need to store information that you're going to remember for the rest of your life, or whether it's something you need for 30 seconds and then it thinks you need to forget about it, is how emotionally aroused you are. And it's only for survival reasons, because if you're more emotionally aroused, most likely you're in a dangerous situation that your brain thinks, well, we need to learn from this situation to keep us alive in the future. Now, you think about jiu-jitsu, when you're doing free rolling, when you're doing positional live sparring, when people are watching you, when you're competing, you get emotionally, aroused. You get nervous, excited, happy, angry, and all these emotions start triggering in your brain, and you start trying to store more information deeper because it thinks that you are needing this to survive. It thinks you're under attack, and we need to learn as much as we can and store this information deep because of survival reasons. When you go there to training and they show you a technique and you start just drilling it over and over again, your brain just switches off after a couple of times of getting it. And you're sitting there most likely talking to your partner about something else. How was your weekend? What were you doing? Da, da, da. And there's no emotional activity or anything. So your brain is telling you, you're telling your brain, I need to remember this. I need to practice this and remember it. And your mind is telling you, we don't need this. This is not important. Let it go. And throw it away. You don't need this to survive. This is a waste of our time. Throw it away. So you start confusing your brain. So the reason why I created these programs is because I wanted to force people to learn through trial and error and to start solving their own problems. Most instructionals you get, it's a teacher showing you their techniques and it's telling you exactly how to do things, and then you go and you copy that. What I'm trying not to do is I'm trying not to tell you anything. I'm trying to force you to figure these things out. Even with my own students, where I have a lot of students online where I teach them or in person, and I'll always be like, they'll say, I have a problem with this position. Okay, let's go in this position. Okay, this is what you're going to do. You're going to play in half guard and you're going to try and pass right now. And that's all I want you to focus on. And the person underneath is just going to defend you, and just go and just go and go. And I'll start seeing the problems. And I'll see that he'll go, I got swept. And I go, okay, how did you get swept? And they start thinking all of a sudden like, well, okay, well, I put my hand here and he swept me this way. Why did he sweep you that way? And then like, because I didn't have a post on that side. Okay, so can we go again? And can you make sure that you have a post on that side now? Okay, they go again. He puts a post on that side. And then he gets caught in something else. I go, what happened? oh, he caught me this. Oh, because you posted there. What happened is you created space in this area here for him to attack that. So can you post there, but also block that space there, as an example? And you start going through these scenarios, and suddenly what they're doing is they're starting to gather so much information that's critical to making decisions in that area, and they're getting experience and understanding. So all the muscle memory is completely honest because it's live. Plus, you're getting it through your own experience. You're nervous, you're excited, you're storing information much deeper, and you're starting to get, you're having fun because you start to take control of your own life. Like you get to the point where, you know what? I can answer every question I have. I have the answers here. And if I think about it enough and I practice it enough, I can be as good as I want to be and I can figure every single problem out. But if you don't have that confidence or that skill, jiu-jitsu is going to be overwhelming for the rest of your career, and you're always going to be searching for new techniques. Okay, I'm stuck here. Can you give me a technique to do from this position here? Yeah, here's a technique. And they practice it. They spend hours and hours practicing it. And then they come in looking more like a choreographed dancer. They look very rigid. They're very predictable. It's complete opposite in what I'm trying to develop in people. I'm trying to get people to be very free-throwing, become very good problem solvers, and learn the way the human body is meant to learn. If I could break down in a very small nutshell, that's what I'm trying to do. So I'm trying to create, I have created a program that allows students the games. I tell them the games to play in which if they spend enough time playing, they will develop, and they develop very quick. I'm telling you, I would give someone 10 minutes, play this game for 10 minutes. Every single time they're like, holy shit. Okay, I see what you're talking about. But it's very confusing. It's very hard for me to articulate that without them actually doing it. I had a student recently. He was under one of the Gracies. I can't remember for a while, the one that had Metamoris. And he was training for a year under him. He's a brown belt. And he said, look, kid, I've heard this no drilling shit that you've been talking about. Makes no sense to me. But I got you here because I want to see what you're talking about. So I'm like, okay, here we go. Where are you having problems? And this guy was half guard as well. I keep talking about fucking half guard. I said, let's start in half guard and go. And so I gave him an objective. We started in half guard. I just want you to try and take the back. That's all you're trying to do. You're starting in half guard with an underhook, because he kept getting messed up when he'd have the underhook. And we just went over it and over it and over it and over it. And I didn't say shit. I just let him go. And every time he asked a question, I just asked him, can you figure that out? Try and figure it out. If you can't, I'll tell you. He figured out every single question. After half an hour, he turns to me. He's just thinking. He goes, Kit, he goes, I learned more in this last half an hour than I feel like I have in the last 2 years. He goes, I understand now. And it's nothing that I taught him. It's just understanding and allowing yourself the respect that you can solve every single problem as long as you are able to compartmentalize it and make things a little simpler, remove a lot of the variable, a lot of the gray noise, and just look at jiu-jitsu in smaller problems and start finding a way to solve those, and then just make it a little harder and a little harder and a little harder. And I get that's very hard to try and figure out how to do that as a beginner. Even as a coach, most people don't know how to do it. And that's why I'm here, because I'm going to tell you exactly how to do it. And I'm going to give you, with my program I have, which is task-based games to rapidly improve your jiu-jitsu, I have over 50 games for people to start playing immediately. And it's been out for 4 or 5 days, and the testimonials already and the feedback has been fantastic, which I'm so happy about. You never know with this kind of stuff, because it's very different to what's on the market right now. And everyone on the market is just teaching, telling you what to do. Where here, I'm trying to give you an exercise that allows you to figure it out yourself, which is, for me, I'm like, I don't know how this is going to go. But the feedback's been absolutely phenomenal, and I'm really happy with it. And the best thing about it is when you understand what I'm doing here and you start learning, you're going to get better at learning, but you are also going to start being able to, and I teach this in the product, how to create your own games, which are specifically tailored for where you're at and what style you have. You might be playing with a complete new position, or you want to experiment with a new position, and you'll know how to do that. And an example is what I always tell people: if you want to get good at a certain movement, I would say the first thing I would get you to do, let's take takedowns for an example. Most people don't like takedowns because it hurts and they get injured, and they go to shoot on someone, they get sprawled on, they lose confidence, or they get thrown, and they're just like, I don't want to do that. And a friend of mine, Spencer, who's got a gym in North Carolina, I believe it is, and he was telling me he's got like a lot of the old guys there that they just don't want to wrestle. Okay, so he got my product and he took a game, a task-based game out of the wrestling segment, and he got them to do it. And they all turned around and they're all like, bro, this is fun. I actually love this. Even one of my students, I have a student right now. He's one of the best riders in Hollywood. He's my mentor for riding. I'm his mentor for jiu-jitsu. He's 47 years old, never wrestled in his life. Okay. And we started wrestling, and he wasn't really sure about doing it, but I started with these games. He loves it. He doesn't even want to do jiu-jitsu anymore. He just loves wrestling now. And that's 47 years old. And he's a big boy. Like, you know, that kind of stuff, you can get hurt very quickly, but he's not, because the games are very safe. So one game I would get people to start with, right, is entry attacks. Okay, so let's say I would get them to just attack the entry. Just grab a single leg, grab a double leg, get the back. Don't finish it, and you're not going to get finished on. That way you don't feel like, oh, I'm getting thrown or I'm running the risk. You start loosening up and you start relaxing. You start feeling a lot more, and you know, because you know that there's no risk of you getting hurt. If he gets your single leg, okay, who cares? He lets go. That's the game. You know, and then we could do another game where, you know, people that really want to learn how to do double legs, I get them to start with a double leg, super tight, and I get them to finish that. And what happens is after a while, after, you know, an hour of playing that game, they get so confident that if they get those legs, they're going to get the takedown, and it incentivizes them to then try and figure out ways to get those legs. But if you are getting into wrestling and you are like thinking, well, even if I shoot on the legs, he's going to sprawl, I'm not going to shoot. I'm not even going to waste my time. But if I know that if I get those legs, he's going down, I'm going to find a way to get those legs. And that was tested out with children years ago, which worked really well. So it's almost like you're training backwards. You train the end game. And this could be with it could be a Kimura. Go practice a Kimura for 2 months and just start in a Kimura every single session. Your Kimuras are going to get so damn good that you'll do anything to get to that position. You'll find ways to get to that position because you know that you can do it. But if you don't feel like you can finish a Kimura, why are you ever going to grab a Kimura? You're just going to be like, I don't want to do it. You know, if you don't think you can make money, why the fuck are you ever going to work? If you don't think you can, you know, get fit, why are you ever going to train? If you don't think you can lose weight, why are you ever going to diet? You know, there has to be some kind of belief for most people to even take any step involved into that, unless they're forced into it. So I like trying to build people's confidence in a safe, fun way and get their experience, so then they're more motivated to see, okay, well, now I'm more excited and I'm incentivized to try and make these things happen. And then naturally they get a lot better like that.